Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. We talk with musicians about music making and the creative process. My name, as always, is Mike, and today we talk with Nashville-based artist Brit Taylor, who released an excellent album just recently called Kentucky Blue. Brit was an absolute delight to talk with. I enjoyed hearing about how she worked with the amazing Sturgill Simpson on this record. Sturgill is a big favorite here. The most striking part of this discussion to me was Brit talking about how her song ideas come to her. Brit has a muse, and the muse gifts her with words, melodies, ideas. Brit has worked hard at her craft, learning to work with these ideas, turning them into wonderfully creative songs. But listen to her describe how certain songs have come to her, and how she feels this muse first made its appearance when she wrote her first song as a youngster. It is fascinating, and she has such a positive spirit about her work. It is really great to hear a creative person talk about their craft this way. Little side note, you know there is still time to sign up for my monthly email newsletter called Hey, How's It Going? The Newsletter. It is free, highly entertaining, filled with recommendations and music-related musings, and did I mention that it is free? Sign up at tellyouwhatpodcast.com website or drop me a line at tellyouwhatpodcast@gmail.com. Quick shout out to Neil Dahlgren at Eclipse Music Group for making this great episode happen. Really appreciate your help once again. And now please enjoy this Tell You What discussion with Brit Taylor. Okay, Brit Taylor, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure, I do appreciate your time. I know you are busy because I looked at your tour schedule yesterday, and 1 week, 1 week from tonight, you will be appearing on the Grand Ole Opry stage. How about that, right?
It's crazy. That's still so strange to even hear. I feel like it hasn't even set in yet. I don't know if it ever will. That's the big dream for all young artists moving to Nashville. Play the Grand Ole Opry.
Congratulations. I'm sure it'll be awesome.
Thank you.
Let's back up a bit. I want to talk about your younger days. I know you started singing at a young age. Did you have a musical family? What got you singing in the first place?
I do not have a musical family. My mom and dad, they do not sing. They don't play. They're not artsy at all. They're not like creatives. So I don't know what happened to me. I don't know if I got switched at the hospital. It just, I don't know. I was born with a strange muse.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a divine intervention kind of thing. I was obviously meant to do this because it doesn't make any sense. It's not in my genes. But I did grow up in an area, which I also think is divine intervention. I grew up in an area where they really appreciate and love country music, and they love to help and inspire kids that want to play and sing country music. So that's how I got started in it all. I feel like being born into the family I was born into, had I've been born anywhere else in the world, I don't know if this would have been my life path.
Because there were other people in your community that encouraged you.
Yeah, and my parents were encouraging, but I don't think they would have known any better in another area.
Yeah. So how did you end up finding your first opportunity to sing then?
So there's this place in Prestonsburg, Kentucky. If you haven't been, I highly recommend you go. There's not a lot in that area, but it's absolutely beautiful. And there's a place called the Mountain Arts Center. And the lady that, got all this state funding and everything to help build this beautiful theater, her name was Billie Jean Osborne. And she created the Kentucky Opry. Okay. And so, the Kentucky Opry played there every summer season, kind of like something you'd see in Branson, like a touristy thing. And it was hopping when I was a kid. People would come from all over in tour buses. And, when the East Kentucky economy was thriving quite a bit more, those shows used to sell out when I was a kid every summer, every winter. But they had a kids program that opened the show for the actual Kentucky Opry, and that's what I did. So I was in the Kentucky Opry Junior Pros, and I started when I was 7 playing with a band, and it was all kids, and it was the coolest way to grow up. It's crazy to think about it now because it seems so normal, but as I've gotten older, that was not a normal. That's not something that happens everywhere.
So were you out on the stage like 4 or 5 nights a week in the summertime?
We played usually sometimes we play on Fridays and Saturdays. If one sold out, they'd add another show.
Okay.
And then the Christmas shows were the big deal around home. Everybody came to the Christmas shows. The schools would come. So we'd have Friday, Saturday, and then we'd do a matinee on Sunday and a Sunday evening show.
And were you playing the guitar or just singing at this point?
I didn't learn to play guitar until I think my senior year of high school, and it was because my vocal coach at the Kentucky Opry, I was playing piano, and he said, "Let me tell you something. What are you going to do when you get to Nashville? You going to pack that piano around?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Listen, you ain't going to make it in that town unless you've learned to play guitar."
Yeah. Okay.
So he was always just real blunt. I love him for it, and I'm grateful. But he's a tough love kind of guy. But I begged my mom to take me to get a guitar because I was, just determined. And so we went and got one. Really, really awful, shitty guitar.
Yeah.
Because like I said, my mom and dad knew nothing about guitars. And so they were like, "Well, I got $100. And that's all you're going to get. And you got to get your guitar." And all I was concerned about was the color of it because I didn't know anything about sound or anything. So I found a $150 Epiphone. And it was too much, obviously. And I told that guy, and I said, "Listen, I'll sing you anything you want to hear if I can just buy this guitar." And he said, "Well, what do you know?" And I said, "Well, what do you know? You can play it. I don't know how to play yet." And he said, "Well, what about Landslide by Stevie Nicks?" And I sat in that store and sang that song for him and got me a guitar.
That's great.
Yeah.
But you had been playing the piano before that and accompanying yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever played the piano in the Opry. Mostly I just sang, but I was taking lessons and learning to play and writing songs on the piano.
When did you start writing songs?
My first song fell out of the sky when I was 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still know it?
I do, and I'll never forget that day because I feel like that was the day my life really changed. And I was emotional because I'd had a little boyfriend and he broke up with me, and this song just poured out of me, and it was crazy because it was like a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus, and we had a bridge and a chorus. It was like I just instinctively, from singing so many covers in the Opry, kind of knew how to write a song.
Right.
And I never considered myself a writer. I was not good at school. I hated school. Had no interest. Wasn't good at it. Didn't get good grades, no matter how hard I tried. And so I just thought I'd never be a writer. And that song didn't feel like I was writing it. It felt like something else was. And it still, to this day, feels like something else is doing it.
That's interesting. You say you felt like it changed your life in the sense that you were now a songwriter?
Yeah, the muse had hit. Like there was I don't know, an angel, a muse, something like came into my life then that hasn't left since.
So before that, you were singing. Did you envision, I realize you're 12 years old or 13 at this time, but did you envision a career as a singer before that? Were you headed to the stage one way or another?
Oh yeah, I don't think I'd ever envisioned anything else. I mean, I think most little girls my age were, dreaming about having families and get married and white dresses, and hell, all I ever wanted to do was play the Opry.
Yeah, and now it's happening.
Yeah, I know.
So now you write a song when you're 13. Do you now start continuing to write and think of yourself differently because now you are a writer and not a singer?
Yeah, and it still felt very effortless. It never felt like I was going to go and try and write a song. They just kept falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so silly, but that's really how that's how it started and how it still happens for me. They just kind of come out of nowhere when I'm gardening or when I'm, blowing the leaves off the driveway or doing some kind of mindless task, this song will just hit me.
Yeah, that's great.
Sometimes I'm like, did I steal this? Does this exist somewhere else? Because it comes so clearly. But sometimes I'll have to get on Google and make sure, have I heard this?
Yeah, right. So how do you think of yourself now when you think of yourself as an artist? Do you consider yourself a songwriter first, a singer-songwriter? How do you see the picture that is yourself?
I think for me, it's all just bundled up together. I can't imagine being just a singer or just a writer. It's all just, to me, it's just one thing of being an artist. I do hope that, other artists will see me as a writer and want to record my songs. And I'm never above recording another artist, songs, another songwriter's songs. One of my favorite artists in the world, Patti Loveless, I think she cut a couple songs she wrote, but most of those were written by Costas and Jim Lauderdale and all these incredible songwriters that were, just songwriters then. And I think that, being an artist is picking, the best songs that you could pick that you relate to and that that make you feel something. And I look forward to being able to be a song hound too and get out there and find some of the best songs there are, because there are a lot of great songs in this town, in Nashville.
There sure are. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job. So people keep writing them.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're gonna continue our travels. You come to Nashville pretty young for college, I believe, but also maybe to see if you can make it in the business.
Yeah, I was 17, and the only way my parents were going to support me coming here and continue talking to me and not disown me was, if I went to college. So
right.
I went to MTSU, and I got a degree in music business. And my last year of school, I went through the summers and everything. Like I said, I just wasn't good at school. I didn't like it. It was a means to an end for me. Like I had to go to make my parents happy, and it was fun and I learned a lot. But I went through the summers, one, because I didn't want to go to Kentucky back home. I wanted to stay here. And then two, you could finish a whole semester in 1 month of a class, because you just go every day. So I'm like, I'd rather do that than, So I graduated like a year early, and not because I was any smarter than anybody else.
But you worked harder than everybody else.
Maybe. I worked pretty hard. I went to classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'd jumble them all up into 2 days so that way I could drive to Nashville and write songs on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Wow.
So I started co-writing, but
So I want to get to that. You had a publishing deal in Nashville for a little bit. This was during college and after, I'm assuming, based on what you've told me.
Yeah, so the last year of college, I needed like an elective, and so I saw they were offering songwriting classes, and Hal Newman was my teacher, and he was so supportive that he was like, well, this internship is only for songwriting majors, but you need this internship. I'm going to help you get it. And it was an intern where you did half business and half songwriting. So I got an internship at this place called Cal 4 Music Publishing, and they were forced to listen to my songs because that was my internship.
They couldn't fire you.
Yeah, so I did cataloging and stuff and business stuff for them, and then, they listened to my songs every now and then, and that's how it started. And 3 years after that internship, they offered me a deal.
Wow. I mean, that's a reason to have gone to college, right? Right there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I understand you didn't find that publishing deal situation to be the right fit for you, but I'd like to talk about it for a minute if we can. First, can you explain for our listeners what it means to have a contract like this, a publishing deal as a Nashville songwriter? What is actually involved in that?
Yeah, so, man, there's so much involved in it. Pages and pages and pages of contracts involved in it, but I'll try to give you the breakdown.
Okay.
So a publishing deal is where this company pays you a draw, which is technically not a salary. They call it a draw because you do have to pay it back on any future royalties, on any future money that you're going to make from those songs. That goes back towards whatever they paid you. So technically it's a no interest loan that
In advance. Yeah.
Yeah, so and if you don't ever make it or whatever and you're out of your deal, you don't ever have to pay that back. It's kind of just, if nothing ever happens, nothing ever happens. So
Right.
But it's awesome for a young songwriter because you're finally getting paid to write songs. You have a team of people who are setting you up with co-writes that you probably wouldn't have gotten on your own. So it was awesome. I was 20. How old was I? 23 when I signed, or 22?
Yeah.
So I was very young and very impressionable. And I was in a band that was at a time when women weren't on the radio at all. Like, if you think it's bad now, rewind back to 2013. It was horrible.
We're talking about contemporary country radio.
Yeah, no women, like none. So they were like, what do you think about being in a band? And we had talked about a couple of different people and to be in a band with, and I was like, well, I don't know these people. What about like these guys? And I introduced them to two of my best friends, and they ended up signing them to a deal too. So they signed the three of us to a publishing deal and a what do you even call those deals? It was like a 360
artist deal.
Yeah, artist deal where they managed and produced us. So it was an interesting thing. And of course I was 22, so I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Sweet,
Where do
cool,
I sign?
fun. Yeah. We're not two best friends. Like, this is going to be awesome. And it was really great for a really long time, but it just, and it was so much fun. Like, we had a hell of a time. And I wouldn't honestly take it back for nothing.
I want to take a step back to the songwriting. Under the way that the deal worked, you would go in to an office and sit down with different writers every day and try and come up with a song.
Yeah.
That they would set you up with.
Yes. And I was kind of already doing that before I ever had a deal. I had been doing that since I moved to town, just setting up my own co-writes.
Okay. But in this case, whatever you came up with went to that publishing house.
Oh, yeah. Whether it was terrible or great, you had to send it in.
Okay, so eventually you realized this role wasn't working for you.
Yeah, the band fell apart. One of my best friends, he started having kids, and just his values, changed, which is completely normal. And we had been banging at record label doors, and begging and pleading, and it wasn't working. We came real close once, and a label had called us in for a meeting, and this, Nashville's like real big on beats. I don't know if they I don't know. Record label people just don't hear acoustics anymore. It's very strange. So I remember asking my publisher, like, do we need to bring like some tracks or like a beatbox or like, because, if we go in there with a mandolin and a dobro and a guitar, I don't know if these guys are going to get it. And he was like, no, they'll get it. And they've already heard the EP and they love it. And like, they're calling for the meeting. It's going to go great. And man, we thought we all had it in the hat. And we get there, I'm on a mandolin and the other guys were on dobro and guitar. And we play our first song. We play our hearts out, man. And my heart is just beating so fast. And the record label exec looks at me and he said, well, is this like mountain music?
Oh, gosh.
And I like could feel my blood boiling, and I was like, well, I am from East Kentucky and Matt is from South Carolina, so yes.
Maybe.
I don't know. Like, what do you mean mountain music? Anyways, he was very unimpressed.
Brutal.
And I was like, daggone, I knew we should have brought that beatbox.
Oh, wow. But what about just the songwriting aspect of it itself, aside from trying to get your band to break, the writing for other people as part of a publishing deal, writing for Nashville, I should say, right?
Yeah, we did some of of that, but most of it was just focusing on trying to write for the band. And
Okay.
then if that, if it ended up being a good pitch, they would also pitch it. So I think I had a song on hold with, I don't know, an artist for like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say.
Right.
Anyways, this big artist had my song on hold for 6 months
Ah,
and didn't cut it.
yeah.
So had a lot of those.
Well, how do you see the difference between writing for yourself now and the writing you were doing then?
Well, then, for one, I didn't know who I was. I was 23, and, I have all these people around me wanting to make me and my band a star, and uh, all of these different opinions of, like, hey, did you hear this new girl that just popped off? Do you hear what she's doing? Like, maybe you guys try to do something like that, or maybe
Yeah.
you all sound a little more like. So it's just, and Nashville is just that town. You can't get away. I'm dealing with it now, like,
Sure.
making records and stuff, and it's tough because I do want to be a people pleaser. I don't want to be hard headed or not open minded. Like, I do want to be open minded, but I also know that I need to stand my ground for my own art, and that is so hard in Nashville. And I know Sturgill's even like had trouble with that because the day we finished tracking, he was like, we were talking about who was going to master the record, and we both agreed that it would be Richard Dodd. And I was like, do we want to let anybody hear it first? And he said, hell no. If we let everybody hear it, they're going to think that they have a right to their own opinions about it. This record's done. And I was like, that's the most profound thing I've ever heard. Like,
Yeah.
I just learned the biggest lesson of my life in Nashville to this point.
Well, we're gonna get back to Sturgill in a few minutes. I would like to talk about your creative process for a second, if we can. You talked about coming up with ideas while you're out walking, gardening, that kind of thing. Do you have a regular practice? Do you have a discipline where you sit down and try and write, or do you wait for those ideas to come to you?
Both. So
Yeah.
I have write scheduled all week. So I go in and write a song whether or not the muse is there or not. I
So
think
you
over
have
the years,
co-writes scheduled on a regular basis.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And normally it's like you can't force a muse. Like you can't, like it either shows up or it doesn't. Which is just such a strange concept, I know, but yeah, you just don't know when it's going to show up. And normally when it does show up, I will put those ideas in my phone in the notes,
Yeah.
and I will just stop and write until it's gone, until it's just not there anymore. And then I'll go back and figure out how to craft it more.
Okay.
So now it's more like when I was a kid, I would just write when the muse showed up and that was it. But now, like, I've learned how to craft a song and how to take those emotions and really try to make art rather than just, emotions on a piece of paper.
Yeah. So when you say you have an idea and you put it into your phone, are these lyrics with melodies? Are you sometimes singing them into your phone, or what is the?
Usually both.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come with melody.
So you'll sing it into your phone.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the co-writing process now. You said you have co-write scheduled. Let's talk about how one of these song projects comes together. You get in a room with someone, you have these ideas on your phone, and you bring some of them up, I'm guessing. In one session, say an afternoon session, are you hoping to come up with the bulk of one complete song?
Oh yeah, we normally finish a song that day. It's not very often that I leave without a song finished. And sometimes you do, but sometimes, songwriting's a lot like dating. I mean, there has to be a chemistry between the people in the room, and if there's not, there's really not much hope. I think that's why you see, these writing cliques in Nashville that are very successful together, and it's because the chemistry is obviously so good.
Right.
But then sometimes my husband Adam Chaffins will write with Adam Wright, and we'll write 2 songs, in a 3-4 hour session.
Yeah. So when you get together with these regular writes, are you circling around the same people, or are you always finding new people to write with then?
Both.
Yeah.
I'm always excited to write with new people, especially new young artists. But when I'm really, focusing on me and my ideas. I'll hoard back ideas for myself. And then I'll find the people that I want to write them with, like Adam Wright and my husband, or Pat McLaughlin. Yeah, some ideas, as soon as I hear them, I know who I need to call to write them with.
Oh, okay. Because it seems to me that to co-write, there's a certain amount of trust involved in this process, like putting your ideas, your truths out there. And I've never done it, so it seems interesting to me that you could get to that point with basically a stranger in one afternoon, where you're willing to trust them with these ideas, these emotions of your own.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hardcore therapy session with complete strangers.
Yeah. Now, when you do these co-writes, do you tend to come up with the same type of contributions? Are you stronger in one area or another, like lyrics or choruses or melodies, or does it just vary depending upon the song and who you're working with?
It varies on the day. It varies what the muse brings to the table, and what everybody else is bringing to the table, and they all got their own muses, and yeah, it just depends on the day.
Yeah. I want to talk about this great new album you just put out, Kentucky Blue. But you were able to work on this record with both the legendary David Ferguson, maybe best known for his work with Johnny Cash, as well as Sturgill Simpson, kind of a dream team, yeah?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sturgill's known for stretching, or maybe more accurately in his own music, ignoring the boundaries around country music. I'm guessing this was maybe one reason you were excited to work with him?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely one. There's a million reasons. I mean, he's so talented. He's so brave, and he's not afraid to go against the grain of, the norm. And I just really admire and respect that. So,
can you talk about maybe something you took from that entire process of working with Sturgill? Anything specific that maybe you will bring with you when you work on future projects?
Oh, definitely. I mean, just like I said, earlier, him not wanting anybody to hear the project until it was mastered, done,
right,
finished. This is it, and just very much like this is our project. And I don't know how many times that I've even asked him for advice on which songs to leave out of the record, because we cut 12. And it was so hard to pick which songs to leave out. And I asked him, I don't know how many times, and every time his answer was, "This is your record. What songs do you want to leave out?" I mean, it just inspired me to make my own decisions and to be confident in them, which I'm not always. And so it was good to be around that. I remember my husband, I don't remember what we were talking about, but it was, he said it'd do me good. He said, it's going to do you good being around Sturgill. Maybe you'll, stand up for yourself or something like that. Or maybe you'll tell people to go to hell. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know.
That's great. I'd like to talk about some specific songs. And with Sturgill in mind, I'd like to hear you talk about the song, If You Don't Want to Love Me. This is one where I maybe hear some of his Sturgill sonic influence, like the organ, the guitar tones, the slightly distorted background vocals. It's also an example of the varied sounds and vibes on the different tracks on this album, which I think is great. So did this interesting sound come together in the studio, or did you have an idea it would sound kind of funky when you wrote it?
Oh, yeah. If you listen to the work tape, the little cell phone memo, it's so crazy we still call them work tapes, but the cell phone memo of If You Don't Want to Love Me is very funky. It just lends itself to that type of sound, and so the band just they just caught on so easy because they listened to that little acoustic voice memo and then just went into the studio and nailed it. Well, I think I'll take to drinking, maybe do a little dancing too. Bake someone else my biscuits, let them try my gravy too. It's alright. You don't wanna love me. You don't want this honey, don't go messing with this bee.
Did I read that partway through, right around the recording of this record, you did get married? You mentioned your husband, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
He sings on this record.
He does. I went into the session we recorded August 26th, 27th, 28th, and Adam and I left on the 29th for Taos, New Mexico, and got married on the 1st.
That's great.
It's the most surreal week of my entire life.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good 5 days.
Yeah.
But so that would be his voice we hear on that track, If You Don't Want to Love Me, kind of the vocals in the background. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about another one, Rich Little Girls. This sounds to me like maybe the statement song on the album, one that really comes from your personal truth. I think you did a great job with taking maybe a somewhat common sentiment, life is tough for working people, and you really infuse it with your own take. You can really hear your voice in the lyrics on this. Along those lines, I'm not sure if this was deliberate, but the lyrical nod to Dolly's 9 to 5 song, I think, is a great touch. I think it's really great. What can you tell us about this song?
Yeah, I started a cleaning business when I quit my first publishing deal. I'd actually read a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she had said something about sometimes that when you're getting paid for your art, it can change how you make your art.
Right.
And I knew that was happening for me, that I was just listening to too many voices of who and how and what I needed to be and look like and do, and I just had to quit. And so I started cleaning toilets and floors for money so I could figure out who I was. And it's crazy the people that I met following that, because I met a lot of people that were also putting out their independent records, like Lauren Morrow, whom I adore. Her and her husband paint houses, and that's how they fund their recording projects. And then Meg McCree was waiting tables, and like, my story is not unique. We're all out here busting our butts trying to pay our dues. That's what everybody told me when I first moved to town. You have to learn to pay your dues. You have to pay your dues. But they literally meant you have to pay with money your dues, because when you're an independent, you have to figure out how to pay for PR, and it is not cheap. You have to pay for the artwork on your record, and if you want it to look good, it ain't cheap. And clothing and vinyl is so expensive to front the money for that kind of stuff. It's expensive, and so we're out there just busting our butts because we love it. I mean, even to go on tour puts a lot of baby acts, like that's what I'm considered a baby act. Lauren's a baby act. It puts us in the hole most of the time, because after we pay for the gas, we pay our band, the hotel rooms, we're often not making any money. We're out money. And so that was Rich Little Girl. That's where it came from, because I was writing songs going straight to cleaning a church and then going on tour. And I'm thinking I need more business so I can do a photo shoot, or I need to go clean 5 more houses so I can do this for music. And so, yeah, that is my statement song. That song is my truth for sure.
Well, everybody plays with the cards they're dealt. Everybody's gotta work it out for theirself, and I wouldn't want to be anybody else but a working girl. 9 to 5, honey, I wish more like 24/7. The only days off that I'm gonna get are when I get to heaven. 9 to 5.
We heard about Rich Little Girls. Now I want to talk about what maybe is the bookend song to this, the opening track, Cabin in the Woods, right? It's kind of the flip side, perhaps. Here you're saying that maybe the simple life suits you fine. The rich girls can have their fun over there, but you have your cabin in the woods and you're very happy. This is one of the songs where we hear the traditional Appalachian sounds, also the great fiddle on this song. But I want to ask you this question. On your previous record, you had songs that were written maybe during a rougher stretch in your life. This album has some more upbeat songs, like this Cabin song, for example. So with this song in mind, can you talk about the difference from a creative process standpoint in writing the more upbeat, happier love songs versus the ones that are focused maybe on struggles and heartache? Easier, harder, different in some way?
It's the muse. It's just I mean, Cabin in the Woods fell out of the sky just like, some of those songs on my first record. I was putting on my makeup. I'll never forget. I was putting on my makeup, standing in front of the mirror, and I just started singing, I got a cabin in the woods, does my soul so good. And I just started singing it, and I put it in my phone, and I called one of my favorite writers, Jason White, and I was like, man, I got a good idea for a song. Can you write with me? That was just how, it's not any easier, and it's not any harder, really.
You make it all sound so easy.
It's just, I just was in a good mood, and the melody hit me.
I got an old dog sitting on the porch. He lays there all night by the tiki torch. His legs are worn out, but his heart's still good at my cabin. Fire with me.
Most of the people I have on here describe the tortuous process of trying to come up with songs, and it's nice to hear someone who feels that these songs are gifted.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always happen. So I'm talking about songs where obviously the muse was there and it happened, right, and they got on the record. Now lately, like, my co-writes in the last 2 weeks have been really rough because I've been so busy that I haven't had any time to do any mindless task like garden or so I'm out of ideas. So I am going to my co-writes with hopes and prayers that somebody else's muse is working, because mine ain't. It's just, I am dry as a bone right now. So but they always come back. It used to really, really, really scare me that I would never get another idea, that it's just gone, that it's never coming back. And I've learned that it'll come back in due time. And sometimes that means that I'm just a little out of balance, that I need to figure out how to get it back. And usually that's just a little sunshine and some kind of mindless task that I enjoy.
Yeah. So you do actually have a cabin in the woods, so to speak, right? You have a place out in the country a little bit?
Uh-huh. We're just right outside of Nashville. And it's just a little old cabin, and it's tucked back up in the woods. We don't have a ton of land, but got around 3 acres, and it's all wooded, and it's just, it makes you feel like it's a lot more.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about it. Even all our friends, when they come out here to pick, and we always cook, we love feeding people. We're both from East Kentucky, and that's just something you do when you're from East Kentucky. You feed anybody that comes through your door.
I'm going to have to go visit soon then.
Yeah, well, we got some good food over here at the cabin. And but there's something magical about being out here.
I have an important question about the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true you have donkeys on your property?
I do, and I'm so glad they're not out there hollering right now, because I gave them some hay to keep them from hollering, because they are loud. I don't know if you've ever heard a donkey holler. If you ain't, get on YouTube and look one up, because it's hilarious. But we've got 2 miniature donkeys, Sis and Molly. We have 5 pygmy goats, little miniature goats. We have Memphis, Dolly, Tammy, Emmylou Harris, and Linda Ronstadt. And then we have a bunch of chickens, and I quit naming the chickens because chickens just die for no reason all the time. Yeah. So they're the no-name chickens. And 3 dogs and a 3-legged cat.
That's great. I saw, not on this record, but on a previous record, you recorded a version of the song I Go to Pieces, right? Which was made famous in the 60s by Peter and Gordon, a British invasion duo. I found that an interesting choice. Can you tell us what drew you to that song, and maybe what it says about what influences you musically that are outside the country tradition, maybe?
Yeah, my daddy, he loves the oldies, 50s, 60s, doo-wop music. My mom loves the 80s. Dad liked the 80s too, but we would go on family vacations to Myrtle Beach when I was a kid. And I would sit in the front seat with my dad because I was his co-pilot, and Mom would sleep in the back with my brother. And me and Dad would just listen to oldies. And it's my favorite story to tell. He says he looked over at me and I was crying, and there was a Sam Cooke song on. I mean, I was probably 5 years old, too young to know much about lyrics. And I was crying, and he said, "Baby, what's wrong?" And I said, "Dad, why won't his baby come back?" And it was Sam Cooke singing, "My baby's gone, my baby's left." And my daddy called me baby. So in my head, I thought that, this guy's daughter's gone. And I was like, "Why won't his baby come back, Daddy?" And just crying to this song. But we would I loved to listen to oldies with my dad. And Go to Pieces was one of those songs. And I just thought we could make it kind of country, kind of, Lynn Anderson style country. And it was really fun to do in the studio. I don't think many people have heard that one. It's kind of not been played as much as some of the other songs, but I still love it.
I tell my arms they'll hold someone new, another love that will be true, but they don't listen, they don't seem to care. They reach for him, but he's not there. And I go to pieces and I wanna hide, go to pieces and I almost die every time my baby passes by.
Speaking of oldies or other influences, we got time to talk about one more song. I want to talk about the song "For a Night." When I first heard the song and the strings and everything, I was kind of thinking about the old countrypolitan sounds of the 60s. But then I listened again. This is giving me some Gloria Gaynor vibes, right? Some shimmy dance music. I think it is great that you went with these varying sounds on the record. How did you end up with, I guess, the disco grooves on this one?
Yeah, I've been calling it hillbilly disco.
Okay.
I wrote that song with Pat McLaughlin and Cliff Aldridge. It was so much fun, and I almost didn't put it in the Dropbox that I was sending to Sturgill and Ferg because I thought it was too pop. I was like, they won't like this. And that whole time I was thinking of songs to send them, For a Night would not get out of my head. I mean, I was singing it all the time. It was stuck in my head. It's all I could think about and sing. And so I was like, okay, well, I think that's a sign. Like, I'm just going to put it in there, and then they can tell me it's too pop. And Sturgill loved it. Sturgill and Fergus. I think it's Ferg's favorite track on the record. I'm so glad we put that song on the record. It reminds me of the Bee Gees, and I love the Bee Gees. And like I said, listening to all the oldies music with my dad, it's part of my personality. It's part of me and the music that I love, and I'm glad that it made the record.
I confess to a feeling, and it's feeling kinda nice. I can't guess what you're thinking, but I'm thinking for a night. For a night I could be your lover. For a night I could be your friend. If it's alright, I could keep you smiling again and again. For a night we could share some secrets, or keep it light if you want me to. We'll let tomorrow be what it's gonna be. Tonight's just me and you. For a night, for a night.
Well, I think we've taken up almost as much of your time as we can, Britt, but I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is it true that you practice the martial arts?
Yes. I am a second-degree black belt in Shaolin, and I have studied Pakwa, Tai Chi, and modern harness.
Wow. Can you draw any parallels or find any ways that the discipline of martial arts helps your creative life?
Oh, definitely. Just the discipline of going to the co-writes and, working through learning how to craft a song even when the muse is not there. And just being tough and sticking Nashville out. I mean, I feel like a smart person would have left a long time ago. But I'm still here, and I think it's just I think that discipline is everything.
Yes. Well, you are more than still here. You are headed to the Opry next week, Brit Taylor.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your taking the time. And I looked at your tour schedule. You need to come up to Chicago sometime. We have country music fans up here.
I would love to. I'm hoping to make it to everywhere. I'm just ready to go everywhere.
Well, we'll be here waiting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ooh.